All right, Going Yard softball fans, you asked and we delivered. Not only can you enjoy listening to interviews with some of the biggest names in softball, but you can now enjoy savings from the hottest softball apparel and merchandise store on the net. We are proud to announce our affiliation with Softball Lifestyle 101. You can now save 10% off of your entire order by entering the promo code GYP10 at checkout. That's shirts, hoodies, book bags, jewelry, and much, much more. Visit softballlifestyle101.com and remember to use the promo code GYP10 at checkout for 10% off, and you can find those links in our show notes in bio. Hey, what's up? Today in our interview, we talked to Tori Vidales. Tori talks to us about her recruitment process, which actually started early in her high school career. She had a nice interaction with Coach Evans, and she eventually became part of the Texas A&amp family. She talks about her teammates and how they helped her become the hitter and the offensive player that she was. And also, she gives her take on the launch angle. She was a power hitter, and this is, I think, the first softball player we've talked to about launch angle, and it was actually pretty awesome hearing her point of view on it. And the lessons she's learned in that whole entire process, the developing of relationships, her time with Team Mexico, and also her way that she was able to work on time management to be able to do all these things in college and now in her professional career. And she talks a good bit about how she learned how to contribute, even though she wasn't playing on the field, how she could contribute to her team, which I think was pretty powerful. Also talks about her time with the package deal and what she's doing there. And it's just a great all-around episode. And at the end, we kind of round off talking about her hopes being the Olympics coming up in 2020 with Team Mexico. So enjoy this episode. Make sure you share with all of your softball friends, family, and community. It is a good one. Hey, Tori, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, Tori, it's Tyler. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us and do this interview. We know you're very busy and everything you got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm just happy to be here with you guys.
If you can, Tori, for people who aren't familiar with you, can you take us on a little journey back from your high school playing days and how you ended up getting to Texas A&M and what that recruiting process was like along the way?
Yeah, so I actually started, my journey to A&M kind of started a little bit before high school. In 8th grade, I was playing on a team that was a 14-under team, but a lot of the girls were a little bit older. So we played up in a 16U team. Our team name was TPS, Texas Premier Softball. And we ended up playing in a 16U tournament thinking, you know what, let's just go for it. And we actually beat a lot of the teams, and we were in the championship game. And a lot of the college coaches from Texas and just the people that were recruiting at the tournament came out to the tournament and were very surprised that a 14U team was here. And luckily for me, I wasn't in high school yet, so the recruiting rules didn't really apply. So I was able to kind of go up and talk to the coaches. And a lot of people don't know this, but I grew up a shortstop. I was a shortstop until college. And so I was playing shortstop on that team, and I actually walked up to Coach Evans and started talking to her, and she was like, hey, we really like the way you play. We'd love for you to come out to a camp and all this stuff. And I just had a nice conversation with her, and she really just was just asking about not only softball, but a little bit more than softball. So that kind of caught my eye at the very beginning before I really got into recruiting. But then, so my 9th grade year, freshman year came around, and I got on a team called Impact Gold. And at the time, I didn't realize how big of a deal it actually was, but they had a recruiter that was kind of watching around for younger talent, trying to get people to come try out, and you know how that stuff goes. But they asked me to come try out for their team, and I ended up making the team my freshman year. And then we had a recruiter at the time, since the rules were so different. You couldn't talk to a college coach while you were in high school, which I guess is the same now. But we had kind of like that middleman that we could talk to. And Coach Evans was always very, I guess, interested in me. And she knew that I wanted to stay in Texas. And so I went to a camp with one of my friends that was on my team. And we were both kind of big A&M fans, I guess, not huge, but we knew the school. We liked the school. We liked the team. And we liked Coach Evans. And at the end of the camp, this is one of my favorite stories because Coach Evans remembers it so well too. But at the end of a week-long camp, the long summer camp, my parents were supposed to come pick me up. And my grandparents actually are super big supporters of mine. And they live 40 minutes from College Station in a town called Brenham. And I hadn't seen them in about a month. And normally I see them pretty much every weekend because they would come to all of my select games and all of my high school games. So it was very, not very often where I didn't go without seeing them. And when I got off the bus, because we were supposed to scrimmage that day at the camp and it started raining, so we ended up having to go to the baseball indoor. And I got off the bus and my grandparents were sitting there and I just like kind of freaked out and like hugged my grandparents. And now Coach Evans tells me that story and she's like, you know, that's one of the big reasons why we loved you even more, because family was such a big part or a big aspect of your life. And to us, family is everything. And so I just like telling that story because it stood out to her. So it makes me really think a lot about it. But yep. So I committed right after that, that camp. They offered me a scholarship to A&M to come play, and finished all 4 years of high school with the same select team, Impact Gold. And yeah, then it ended up at Texas A&M, and here we are.
Wow, that's an awesome story. I love that. And I love the fact that Coach Evans was able to recall it as well. That makes it even better. And, you know, the whole vibe that she saw with you and what she was trying to portray, you know, with having the family-like atmosphere. I mean, it just goes to show you that was obviously something that was huge for her.
It is, and just to jump in, it's kind of really special because, I mean, like, you know, the softball tournaments and all these games, it's really, the grandparents come out, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, you spend all day at these tournaments. So, you know, like that family atmosphere, that family feeling, you know, it's so nice to hear that it resonates in a lot of places still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think at Texas A&M too, that's what makes it so special is you hear about the Aggie network or the Aggie family, which once you graduate from Texas A&M, you will always be an Aggie. And it just kind of goes to show like the whole school cares about family. And, you know, that's a very important moral to them. And it's something that they do care about. And Coach Evans really emphasizes that. And she has so much school pride, like no one understands, because if you don't know Texas A&M, like we have a ton of traditions and just like a ton of school spirit and just so many different things that make us unique. And she upholds every single one of them to the highest extent. And so I love that she cares about you not only as a player, but like as a student of the university and also a person.
Yeah, that is great. Now, I'm just curious. You know, at Texas A&M, you held the record for runs, RBIs, runs scored. I was just wondering, was that something that started? You know, was that from training you got while you were in high school, or is this something that happened? You started to really develop your offensive game while at Texas A&M. What was the biggest thing that you attributed to your success on offense?
Well, at Texas A&M, like I always say, a lot of it was my teammates. 2 of my seasons, you know, I had Keely Milligan and Caitlin Alderink on the base pass, which they set up a really nice 1-2 for me. And it was pretty much the same thing every single time. Keely would get on base, Caitlin would get her over, and then I would hit her in. And so I can't really like own all of that like by myself, because obviously so much of it is like your teammates getting on base. Your teammates hitting you around the bases. Like we all know I can't hit a home run every single time I go up to the plate. So, just really relying on my teammates. I can't say enough good things about them, just because like without them, it wouldn't be possible, like physically. So yeah, I would say a lot of that, but training wise, I just always prided myself on, making contact. And even though I do consider myself a power hitter, I oftentimes did hit for average. Like I know I'm not going to take a huge hack on 2 strikes, because I'm not one of those people that's either okay, I'm going to either hit a home run or I'm going to strike out. I just want to do what I can to help. So I want to either hit a home run, obviously that would be great, or I want to try to hit something in the gap, be a good situational hitter, and try to be more well-rounded as a power hitter, and not just people expect a home run or for me to walk back to the dugout. So that would be a lot of it. One that I really do, so I actually hold the record for total bases, runs, and RBIs. So the total bases one is really cool for me because I'm not a very fast runner, but I'm a very smart runner. And I think a lot of that does come from like me growing up as a shortstop. I'm agile, not fast, but I'm agile. And Coach Evans always would use me as an example to our like younger campers. And she'd be like, our fastest runner, she's great. She gets a lot of bases, but our best base runner is not our fastest runner. I'm like, oh, thanks, Coach. Like everyone knows I'm not fast. Like we don't have to point it out. Okay.
Thanks for the pep talk.
But, yeah. So she was just kind of reinforcing, like, you don't have to be fast to be a good base runner. You just have to be smart and use your kind of intuition and watch the ball, which is a big one. But yeah, I can't believe I broke 3 records. I was even shocked to find out I broke 1. So just really cool knowing that I leave Texas A&M with my name in ink in the books until someone else breaks it.
Yeah, I think that's really neat because, we all grew up with that person on our team who either hit a home run or they were striking out walking back to the dugout. And,
Right.
that's powerful. I mean, even today in the MLB, there's a lot of guys, more guys striking out these days than there are anything else, but you're also seeing a big boost in home runs. So you don't want to see, just the opposite, where you have one without the other. You want to make sure you have it where you're a smart player. You're taking your swings with a purpose, and it's not always for home runs. It's to get on base, it's to drive the runner over from first to third, or pull them around the score. So I think that's really important. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thanks. Yeah, my dad always said home runs are accidents.
For some,
Find the barrel, get some good backspin, and it'll go.
For some, it might be. I mean, I was watching over the weekend at the tournament, and these girls, man, it's so funny because it's all they even talked about on ESPN this weekend was launch angle and the ball coming off the barrel. It's crazy how softball's elevating to celebrate too now, not just these young cats on the Little League baseball field.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the launch angle. I'm not really a fan of the term.
Right.
Because it makes people kind of like try to dip and yank.
Yeah.
Instead of really like keeping your bat flat through the zone and getting a nice extension. If you get backspin, the ball's going to lift no matter what. So I think just staying flat and simple and not trying to get it out, like it'll happen. If you catch a barrel and you keep your bat flat through the zone, like it's going to go. I think we worry too much about home runs and not enough on barreling up the ball.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. Hit the ball hard. Good things will happen when you hit the ball hard, right?
I think
exactly.
This might be the first softball player we've talked to about launch angle. This is pretty cool.
She's the only one brave enough to, I think. No. That's what happens when you talk to pitchers a bunch of times. They don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about ground ball outs.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Hey, to each their own. I think everybody has a different style and a different keywords. That's what I tell like a lot of the girls that I give lessons to. It's not what you're doing, it's how you're adjusting with the words that I'm telling you. So I could tell the same thing to 4 different people and it would only work for one, but I'm going to try to find a different keyword for you to understand what I'm trying to teach you. So you got to find different ways to teach everybody. So if a launch angle works to tell somebody to get under or like to lift the ball, then hey, so be it. But I don't prefer the term.
Yeah, I like it. I like it either way, honestly. I mean, it's whatever resonates with the kids you're working with. If you can transition in here a little bit, you talk about doing lessons and stuff. What are some of the lessons you learned while at Tech? I mean, College Station's kind of like a big, small town in a way, kind of from people you hear and you talk to, what were some of those life lessons you learned there as a, 18, 19, 20-year-old going through being a student athlete, trying to, manage your time, get workouts in, be on top of your schoolwork? What were some of the life lessons that, you took from that you carry all the way through still to today?
I think the biggest one for me would just be developing your relationships. And that could be anyone from your teammates, your coaches, the fans, the people that are just random walking around town, because someone's always watching you, whether it be an underclassman or a fan that looks up to you or an older person that just is a fan that maybe doesn't even know your name, but just knows you play softball. And Coach Evan knows a lot of people in town. So if we were to ever do something, I feel like it would get back to her, so it's just kind of like holding yourself to that standard, but being able to build that relationship with your teammates, because at the end of the day, like, you're going to remember the cool plays, but more than anything, you're going to remember the relationships and the really fun times you had with your teammates, and just everything you guys went through, the highs and the lows and the excitements and the heartbreak and everything like that. And then just with the people in your class and your professors. I mean, I still talk to a lot of people that were in my classes because we had a lot of them together. And my professors, I got close with a lot of them because, was missing a lot of class and had to make it up. And just being able to build those relationships more than you think you need to, just being able to pour yourself into those, because at the end of the day, like, your relationships are more important than any stat.
Yeah, definitely. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with Team Mexico? How did it come about? And we'll make this like a two-part question. And what was the biggest change from going from the collegiate level to playing with Team Mexico?
Yeah, so Team Mexico, it actually was kind of crazy. So back when Jerry Glasgow was our hitting coach at A&M, he reached out. So he was kind of close with the Team Mexico coach, Carlos Caro, and Carlos had reached out and asked Coach Glasgow if I had any Mexican lineage. And he asked me, and I was like, well, yeah, my last name's Vidales, like, obviously. And you're supposed to say Vidales, a little twang or a little zhuzh there, but I just keep it Vidales, keep it easy for people. But I was like, yeah, of course I do. And he was like, well, find out who, and with being a different country, you have to have dual citizenship. And so it makes it really complicated. So by the time he told me, it was already at the end of SEC competition. And so it was a little late for that year, for the summer, to kind of get going. So they reached out. They knew who I was my freshman year, but it was just kind of too late to get everything in place. And so we worked that whole next school year, so my sophomore year, to try to get that going so I could actually get citizenship and play with them that next summer. So that was the first summer that I actually played with them. And we went to Oklahoma City, Canada, and I think that was it. Yes, Canada. And so I think the biggest difference for me was just the culture shock. I mean, you're playing all these teams from different countries entirely, as opposed to when you're playing in NCAA, you're playing people from around America. So it's a little bit easier to communicate with those people, whether it be like the umpires or just the girls, like whatever it may be, these small conversations here and there. But then you go and you play someone like Japan, where you don't necessarily understand some of the things that they're doing on the field. And like, they always bow before they go on the field, and they do certain hand signals and they yell things at each other. And you're kind of just sitting there and you're a little lost, and everything's moving so fast, and the game is just so fast paced. So you're kind of trying to play a little bit of catch up. And the biggest one for me was when we went to Colombia. All the umpires were from Colombia or of some South American country. And so they're all speaking Spanish, and I speak Spanish. I understand it very well, but I can't speak back to them. And especially in like softball terms, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so they'll be trying to like tell me something at first, like you're leaving early, or watch your foot, or something like that. And I'm like going back and forth looking at my coach, like, what'd they say? Like, I don't understand. And so it was just hard, just like the language barrier and the culture shock. But yeah, definitely for sure, just the different cultures and different players from around the world.
Now let's jump kind of into Scrapyard a little bit here. Now that you play professionally with them, what are some of the differences, between college, between the international game, between the pro league? What are some of the, is it just the speed of the game? Is it the skill level of the game? What are some of the differences between the three levels that you've been able to participate in?
So I would say in the college level, obviously everything's very structured. You have specific times where you have to be everywhere. You have specific training times and hitting groups and practice and all that stuff. And then Mexico, obviously we were a little bit more lenient because most of the girls know and they've played college ball and they know what they're doing. So we still have a little bit more structured, just to where like, hey, we're all leaving at this time to get to the field by this time, and we travel together, and we are pretty much together all the time, and we have like, we're scheduled when we need to eat and everything. And then Scrapyard was a really big change for me because everything is pretty much on your own. So no one's going to hold your hand and tell you like, hey, you need to eat well. You need to go make sure you're working out. You need to make sure you're taking extra cuts. And so you don't have that scheduled compared to college where someone would tell you, hey, you need to be at the cages at this time, on this day. And you get to Scrapyard and it's kind of like, okay, well, we have optional hitting on Tuesday at 7 to 8, come or don't. And so at that moment, you kind of have to take a little bit more responsibility and kind of just own up and say, hey, maybe I do need to get in there. Even if you're hitting well, maybe you want to fix something. For me, the biggest part was just being able to eat right and being able to work out because you're playing a lot. And we got in there the very first day we got to practice, and we were doing 2-a-days with a scrimmage at night and regular practice. But you get to practice, you don't really know what's going on. You're brand new, you're a rookie, and these girls are all in their 20s, like upper 20s, and they like just nothing. Like it's like nothing. They're just going. They know all the cutoffs. They know everything. And everybody has different cutoff situations that they prefer as a coach. And so just learning all those new things from everybody else and the coach, and having to learn how to mess up again. And it's kind of like you go through college, you're at the bottom of the barrel your freshman year, and then you work your way all the way up to the top, and then you just kind of get knocked right back down and you're back at the bottom. So it's kind of like starting from square one again. You have to work your way back up and find out how your teammates work and how to communicate with them and all the plays on the field, and just to be in the right spot and to take ownership of your own play, and like rehab and icing and preparation, mental stuff, nutrition, everything. So it's a little bit different just because you don't have anybody there telling you, hey, do this at this time. And then you're just kind of like on your own. So
yeah,
that was hard.
Yeah, we hear that from a lot of the professional players, and you've been through. I mean, you've been playing for a long time. You did the high school, you did travel ball, you played in the NCAA, and now professionally, you've gone through a lot of ups and downs, I'm sure, in your career, whether it be from injuries, losses, whatever. And then now it's you're professional, and you have to kind of take control, take ownership of everything right now. Can you tell us how you handle the mental side of it? I mean, we love talking about the mental part of the game because, a lot of people look at baseball and softball and they think, well, as long as you can hit, you can hit. As long as you can throw, and that's what they're looking at. But if you can't handle the mental part of it, you're not really going to be around a lot for as long as someone who can. So how do you handle that? And is that something that can be taught, or is that something that just came to you naturally?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, so I talked to you guys about my freshman year getting recruited for this 18U team. My first memory of like really mental game, like struggling, was because my freshman year, my coach, Casey Jackson for Impact Gold, his wife had some complications and he had to take off the summer of coaching. And we had a dad from a girl on the team joined the coaching staff to kind of help out. And he knew his stuff. Like he played baseball, I think. And he just kind of took over that head coaching spot. Well, it was myself and the girl that I told you we tried out together that we made the team. And we were both freshmen. We were the only freshmen on the team, and we were brand new, so we didn't know him. And he basically straight up told us to our face, freshmen don't belong on this team. You guys won't get a lot of playing time.
Wow.
Just so many things that you were like, wait, what? Like, I got recruited to come play, but you're telling me I'm not good enough now, and you're just kind of battling all these thoughts in your head. And I remember him putting me in a pool game. So the only games we were able to play were pool games, and then any bracket games we got taken out and sat on the bench. But he put me in the game, and I hit a bases clearing double in a pool game, which was against a really good team that we needed to get to beat to get a better spot on the bracket. And so I like made this great hit or whatever. And as soon as I crossed the plate, he brought me in. He was like, that was a great hit, but I'm going to bench you now. And I was like,
unbelievable.
Okay. Yeah. And so, I mean, as a ninth grader, you're not emotionally mature enough to be like, okay, like I understand why he's doing this. And I was just kind of like, what the heck, man? Like I just made a great swing. I cleared the bases. Like I had these RBIs and all this stuff, and I'm getting benched for that. And he's like, he told me, he said, you got to leave the coaches wanting more. So when you do something good, if you get taken out of the game, it doesn't give them a chance to see you mess up. And so I was like, what? That doesn't really make sense. And for me, yeah, exactly. I was like, what are you talking about? So I grew up around the game. I grew up around baseball. My dad played at Texas Tech and my brother played at U of H. So baseball is in my blood from a very young age. And I think I saw a lot of the mental game with my brother. And my brother was the complete opposite of me, really, really quick, very fast guy, more of like a contact, small ball kind of guy, a true middle infielder, great hands, great defensively, but we were just so opposite. And he had to fight through that mental side because he wasn't like the other kids and he was a lot smaller and had to find another way to approach the game. And so I kind of used that to my advantage and learning how to adjust to those maybe bad games or games that I didn't get to play. But my freshman year, I remember having a conversation with my dad, and he was like, you may not be playing right now, but you need to find another way to contribute. Like, you're still going to go to all the games. You're still going to do what you can to help the team when you get put in. But when you're not put in is when you're really going to make a difference. And so from that day, I remember always thinking, like, how can I help the team? Like, how can I be someone that if I'm not in the game, that I can still help my teammates? So that year I started charting pitches for all the bracket games, and I would write down the pitch sequences, and I would write down what the hitter did. So if someone grounded out, I'd be like, hey, last time she threw you a screwball and you grounded out to the third baseman. So that way my teammates knew, like, hey, here's my adjustment. There we go. But yeah, that helped me move into kind of like a leadership role on that team without even playing, and just being able to take ownership of that on the mental side. But I think going through that helped me be a better player because I was able to kind of analyze the game and was able to kind of get through that not playing. So I was able to relate to the girls who weren't playing the next year. So it kind of gave me that little middle ground for those girls, and I was able to kind of talk them through it. And it was just kind of like a line down as I got older, and the girls would come in, the new girls would come in. So I would say that was definitely like a big side of the mental game, but it definitely changes when you get to college, I would say, for sure.
That was kind of cool because I bet you the next season you knew exactly everything about your opposing team just because you had taken so many notes. You probably knew how to approach them even better than you would have that first year.
Yeah, 100%. It just is like a little thing that you don't really think about. You think, oh, okay, I can remember it next at bat. But when you go back and you actually look when it's written down, you're like, okay, it was the curveball before the changeup. That changes my approach. So it's just small things that help you get a little bit of a leg up on the pitcher.
Well, that's the game, right? You got to try and stay one step ahead, make constant adjustments.
Yep.
It sounds like that's what you've been about for a long while, so that's got to be very helpful. And staying kind of on that a little bit about, that taking notes and all that. Let's jump into the package deal a little bit and the things you're doing with them and how that opportunity came about, and the things that you're doing, what kind of specifically you're working on in those clinics that you're working in.
Yeah, so package deal has been great. I just joined the roster this past summer, so right after my senior season. They had reached out, and I had been friends with Amanda Scarborough for a little while because she did play at Texas A&M, and she would come occasionally, and my dream was always to work in broadcasting for softball. And I worked with 12th Man Productions, which is the school's sports broadcasting company, or basically, I guess, company. But they run all the broadcasts for every single sporting event at A&M. And so they would come eventually, like every once in a while they would come into the studio, and I would be in there working, and we'd get to talking and just talking about, what were the goals and all this stuff. So Amanda knew from a very young age that's what I wanted to do. So she had kind of always been almost like a mentor to me. And I met Jen and Morgan actually through Amanda. That Amanda asked us to work a package deal clinic like 3 or 4 years ago when I think I was a freshman. They asked us to work a smaller one out of Fieldhouse, which is a building here that people do lessons out of and stuff. And we ended up staying in contact with them, and Jen would always come. So her sister, Nicole, played at Arkansas. And so Jen would come to like the Arkansas versus A&M game, and she'd be heckling us from the stands. And it was just kind of a funny thing how it just ended up and we were cool. And if you know Jen, she's super talkative and super just in everybody's business and softball. Like she just knows everything about softball and all the people. And she just has a very tight connection with a lot of people in the softball community. And so they reached out, and their thing is just knowing people or having people that represent themselves. And I guess that would represent their brand well too, because it is about empowering the younger kids. And it's not always all about like your talent. It's about what message are you putting out on social media? Like, kind of like what your coaches look for. Like, do you cuss on social media, which is a big no-no? Like, are you posting red Solo cups on your Instagram, which are obviously not a good representation of what you would want, like as a business for little girls to look at. So they had kind of been scouting, just following people, and they reached out and said, hey, like we think you would be a great candidate for what we're trying to do and spreading our message. And so I ended up joining them, and I actually joined them before I knew that I was going to be playing for Scrapyard. So I got to go to a couple more summer events than I probably would have if I would have found out the other way around. But so I worked a couple of those. The entire summer, they told me very last minute that I was going to be leading the hitting session of the package deal clinic. And I don't know if anybody has ever seen the clinics on Instagram or anything. Jen, Amanda, and Morgan are incredible public speakers and just incredible motivators. And they just really tap into a different side of the girls. And I think that's because they know, and like they've been there and they know how to connect to those girls. But for me, I thought, like, how am I going to do this? I've never been one to shy away from public speaking. So that wasn't what I was concerned about. I was just concerned about making my message worthwhile and like hoping these girls could resonate with it a little bit more. Because I was younger and closer to their age. Maybe, they thought, okay, maybe I can be her or be like her or whatever it may be. But I remember talking, and I just remember talking in a circle, and Jen had to like save me a couple of times. And I was like, oh, I don't think I did that right. And they were like, no, like you did great for your first time. And just trying to share the message, like, mental game is important. The things that we were talking about just now, and just like learning how to contribute, and you're not always going to be successful, and just things that you don't hear about when you hear about softball, and just motivating these girls to believe in themselves and not back away from a challenge. And so I've really loved everything that we're doing with them. The roster girls have been awesome, and it's just been great to be able to be beside girls that have the same goals as you, but have also had a little bit of the same experience as you. They understand what you're going through. They understand where you've been. And a lot of them have been to the World Series, have won a national championship. So they get it, and they can spread that message to girls that want to be there eventually in the long run. And just having people by your side, like I can honestly say a lot of the girls on the roster have become some of my closest friends just because we think so similar. Wow, I can't talk anymore.
I can't say that word anyway. Yeah.
I know it's a hard one. Similarly. But yeah, just being together and sharing the same goal and working towards the same mission has been really just incredible. And I am so thankful to be a part of it.
I was about to say, I mean, there's enough talent in coaches that you guys could be your own Scrapyard team and go put on some showcase games. I think that,
right.
I think there's so much depth that
has
been accumulated that it's impressive and incredible. I mean, just looking at what was down in St. Pete with all of the people, I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, I would like to see this be a game. Like, people could challenge you all.
I wouldn't want to play
right.
you.
Yeah. So the coolest thing, I think it's one of the coolest things about the package deal clinics is wherever we go, we reach out to schools that are close or former players that we know live in the area. So I've worked with a ton of people that I've either looked up to or played against, and just kind of get to meet them in a different way, like not a competitive way, just like a, hey, you know, like you had a sick curveball or whatever it may be. You know, it's like kind of like a bonding moment where you're no longer competing against each other and you're kind of working towards that same goal, which is amazing because I've made so many friends that way. But like you're saying, at the St. Pete's event, it was crazy. It was like Jessica Burrows and who else was there? Gianna DeSalvatore, and just so many different people that you would never, if you like went to a Florida State camp, you would only have Jessica Burrows, Jesse Warren, but you wouldn't have all the other people. So it's like almost like just like a college clinic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I would not want to play your team. That's for sure. If you guys all got together, no way.
That would be pretty fun.
Yeah,
Make it happen. Maybe slow pitch.
Charity game. We should do like a charity game.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
that would be so fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but the thing is, if we did slow pitch, someone would stand on that mound and make me look like an idiot and throw something fast.
It could be like the package deal versus like the USA men's slow pitch team. Like
there we go.
That would be like a great matchup. Like,
Have you ever seen them hit?
Dude, those guys are crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get that big and swing a softball bat. I don't know. Some of those guys.
Let me tell you. Okay, so I took up slow pitch over this past fall to like just hang out with some friends from my gym, and they didn't tell me that it was an all men's league.
Oh.
And they were like, yeah, just come play with us. And I was like, okay. And I show up and I'm the only girl. And I'm like, did you guys forget to tell me something? And they were like, just try to hit a home run every time. See if you can do it. And I was like, I can't get it past the center fielder. So
how was it?
Stick to a ground ball.
How was it trying to adjust to that slow pitch after seeing this fast pitches for so many years?
I know, right? Going from Monica Abbott to slow pitch.
That's a world of difference.
Yeah, seriously.
Right. It actually wasn't bad. I was trying to think just like stay middle of the field.
Right.
And like try to hit a line drive. Like the first couple of times I was like, all right, let me see how far I can hit it. And until I learned like I can't hit it very far because there's not enough speed on the ball. So I kind of like let up and was just trying to hit singles, which is definitely my jam in slow pitch, even though it takes me a while to get to first base.
Yep.
But yeah, it wasn't too bad. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be, that's for sure.
That's awesome. Now, just to kind of stay on the topic of empowering, young women and, giving them, goals to look forward to, what are your thoughts and, what does softball coming back to the Olympics mean to you personally? And what does it do for the sport in your own words?
Man, when I think about the Olympics, the only thing I can think about is being like 11 years old on Pick Stitch. I think that's what it was called. No, Hay Bucket. No, not Hay Bucket. What is the app called on? What is it called?
I don't remember. We
We
had MySpace, so I don't even know.
What'd you say?
I said we had MySpace, so I don't even know.
Yeah, no. I did have MySpace, but I'm saying there was like this app or this website you could go to, and you could like put your photos in, and then you edit the pictures and like put all these like cool fonts on them and like
cool.
little pictures and like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep,
Those,
yep.
like little
Pick Monkey?
Okay, so
Maybe.
what is it called?
Pick Monkey? Is that it?
No. I like have it on the tip of my tongue because I probably still could log into it to this day. But so me and my friend Skylar, we actually like play on the same 10U team. And I remember making pictures of the 08 team and like Jenny Finch, Crystal Bustos, like all these like really great players. And that was like the dream team, right? And so we would make little text pictures, and it would say like my dream team, and then like in the corner it would be like my favorite player or whatever it was, that whoever was our favorite player that day, because we loved all of them. And then we would put like future me with like a little arrow to like Crystal Bustos and like just like funny stuff like that. So being able to say that I actually have an opportunity to go play for an Olympic team, and even though it is Mexico, like that is a great like accomplishment if we make it there. Like the Olympics are the absolute highest level that you could play at. And so for me, just thinking about my younger self, looking up to those girls and now almost being one of those girls, is incredible. It just gives me so much hope for our sport, and knowing how far it's come, even in the past 10 years, just all the coverage, like including that St. Pete's tournament. There were so many teams there, so many people in the stands, and so many people tuning in to the ESPN games, and such great talent that's calling the games and doing play-by-play. And so just overall the sport and just people giving back to the sport. And I think that's the most important thing, is people not giving up after they're finished. And it could have been really easy for a lot of people to be like, you know what, I finished my career in college, so now I'm just going to go get a job and be normal. And that's okay if people decided to do that. But it takes a special person to kind of stay around the game and not make a lot of money and just do it anyways because they love it and they want to give back and want to be a role model for the younger girls. And it's just so many people are deciding to do that now and playing for so little money, even though they're playing. And you can tell it really is for the love of the game, because, you know, we don't make $50 million a season. It's just been great to see all the talent that's stayed in the game and around the game, and just giving back and teaching the ones that come after them so they can teach the ones that are coming after them for the future and the betterment of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I've said a few times to a few of our guests, like we hope, you know, as dads of daughters, that, you know, the softball thing, and I think it's starting with ESPN's and help and ESPN Plus and all that, is that, you know, softball gets that Olympic bump like women's soccer's had over the years, and, you know, other sports that, you know, when it comes to World Cup or something like that, that women's sports gets more exposure and more eyes on it. That always helps drive the market a little bit.
Right. And I think the biggest thing too, I don't know if you guys saw the tweet recently, but softball is no longer a non-revenue sport, which I thought was amazing.
We retweeted that. It's like the third, it's right behind football and men's basketball. And number 3, that's impressive. Yeah. It's crazy, honestly, in such a short time.
And I think even to me, like, it's not about how much money we make. Like, you could pay us dirt and, like, we're going to play because we love it. And I would always say, growing up, watching like softball compared to baseball, we would always make the comment, you know, like, softball players hustle because we just love the game, and baseball players don't hustle if they hit like a ground ball because they make millions of dollars and they don't care.
No Manny Machado's running around the softball field. No.
Yeah. Yeah. So we would just like talk about like how much just people love it, even from a young age. Like, we knew like softball players play because we love it, not because we're going to make millions of dollars. And that's so important now that they have a chance to actually go farther than college and not have to worry about like, oh, am I going to be able to survive like just playing softball? And like, you have to pick up so many like side jobs to do here and there. But at the end of the day, it's like, how much do you love it and how much do you want to finish and play out your career as long as you can?
I'll say Team Mexico's got the Romero sisters coming. We saw a little bit ago. People better take notice and watch out, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
Staying on the topic a little bit, what are some of your goals in the next 3 to 5 years, whether it's, you know, professionally, the package deal, being a coach yourself? I mean, what are some of the things you see yourself doing, wanting to do, and where do you see this game taking you?
Wow. So my goals, I really hope to be going to the Olympics. I hope Team Mexico qualifies. I think that would be huge for not only the girls on the team, but also Mexico as a country, and just representing our families and people that are no longer here, like my grandparents, my great-grandparents, giving them that honor. I think that's huge for a lot of us on the team. And really just trying to stay in the game, stay around the game, give back as much as I can. I love giving lessons. I think that's really important, because a lot of times, like, people will try to teach the game, but they don't know a lot about it because no one else is stepping in, or like no one else is around that knows about the game. So I think it's huge when you do find a couple people here and there that can actually give lessons and like know what they're talking about. Cause sometimes it's just like, you know, dad popping in and just like helping to do what they can because they don't have anybody else to help. And like, fortunately for me,
and then they tell a freshman that you can't play. They tell a freshman you can't play.
Do what?
And then they tell a freshman you shouldn't be here playing, and you hit a double and you get benched. That's uneducated dads. I hope that you and the package deal and this podcast helps inform dads out there that these girls know what they're doing. They deserve it. I mean, it's crazy. I just can't. I'm still sorry to interrupt you. I'm completely sorry, but
no. Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad that you brought that up. But yeah, that's exactly, like, it's just teaching the game, and I think that's a big part of it. Is one of my other goals is to be on ESPN doing color commentary. And I've taken a couple steps. I'm calling the SEC Plus games here in College Station for Texas A&M with 12th Man Production. So I called a couple games not too long ago, the very first opening weekend. And I'm doing radio for all the away games. So I get to travel with the team and stuff. So I'm getting a lot of practice with that kind of stuff. And just having people help me along the way. Like Amanda Scarborough called me before my first game and was like, hey, like, just wanted to check in, make sure you knew like the basics of color commentary, because I've never done it before. And basically saying, you know, if I was to teach you the 3 to 5 points of hitting, this is what I would tell you. And so that she was kind of like making that analogy towards color commentary. So yeah, I would say that's another goal, is just to be on ESPN calling color commentary for the World Series. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty good goal, I'd say. Who would you recommend that we have on this show for a future episode? Who do you think that would be a good person to have on here, whether it be a coach, a player, or maybe not even someone that's even a coach or a player right now? Who would be a good person to talk softball with?
Ooh, I think a great one would be Lauren Haeger. I think so. I met Lauren this past year when we played together with Scrapyard, and we played against each other one year, and we also worked package deal. And I worked a couple with her this summer, and we had a really long road trip one time. Like we were driving from, I don't even remember, like Tennessee to somewhere else. I don't know. It was like a 4-hour drive. And we were all just talking, like, how can we make the hitting session better? And she's a two-way player, so she's a really amazing pitcher and hitter. And so just the way she approaches the game, I think would shock you guys. And like the stories that she has, whether it be about Florida, Coach Walton, or just her teammates, or just things that she's learned over the past. Lauren is such an unconventional player in the fact that she doesn't look or think like anybody expects her to. And she owns it, like 100%. She will tell you, hey, I have an unpopular opinion and I'm going to tell you anyways, and she just has such a high IQ of the game and how to fix it and how to teach it and how to bring it into that conversation and make you really think. Like we were having a conversation about hitting, and we were just talking about different ways that we were taught and different drills that we did. And she was like telling me about drills that I've never done or heard about. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, like you want this separation right here, and this causes the extension and this. And I was like, wow, I've never even thought about it like that. That's incredible. And just like, you just get going into almost a rabbit hole of hitting. And then we start talking about like pitching and hitting and how it correlates and how it's different, and all the similarities of mental side and the differences, and just being able to separate it. And honestly, it's just been incredible to know her as a friend and as a coworker. And I think you guys would be really impressed with the things that she has to say. So I would definitely go with Lauren.
Awesome. We'll definitely reach out.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a great story to hear, and just the way you present. I can't imagine diving into her mind a little bit and digging more of that out. But thanks for the recommendation on that. That's for sure. We're definitely going to follow up on that.
Of course. Yeah, pitching and hitting, 2 in 1.
I mean, that's two-way players. Rachel Garcia, it's starting to get popular. I mean, you're seeing more of it.
Yeah.
So it's part of the game.
I'm telling you, there's so many. It's coming up.
It is. Tori, I appreciate you taking the time to do this tonight. Before we wind this down, if you can, for the girls or coaches or dads out there who are listening to this and they want to get more information about what you're doing, what towns you're traveling to, where can they find some of that information out about you, whether it be on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or whatever you got? If you want to just let people know how to get in contact with you, please let them know.
Yeah, so all my handles for Instagram, Twitter, and all that is just Vidales Tori, Vidales Tori, super easy. Facebook is just Tori Vidales. Scrapyard does this really cool thing where they update people during off season about like big things happening. So maybe if I'm doing something really big, you might see it on Scrapyard. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll be calling a lot of the A&M games. So if you want to look up the A&M games and look up where you can listen to those live, you might be able to hear my voice a little bit more outside of this podcast.
Right.
But yeah, that's pretty much all the places you can find me. I'm pretty active on social media, I'd like to say. So
Awesome.
they'll see something.
Awesome. Well, let's wind down the interview with this last question here. We usually ask, if you had one at bat in a professional softball game, what song would you use as your walk-up song? You are a professional softball player, so what song do you use for your walk-up song?
Ooh, so I'm going to have to go Bryson Tiller, 502 Come Up for sure.
And what do you...
about?
Good.
He talks about like Louisville Slugger, which before I was with Rawlings, my handle on Instagram and Twitter and everything was Torville Slugger, just a little punny softball name there. And so whenever I was in college, we would do like Louisville Slugger comparisons to like Torville Slugger, and I was a hitter and that was my thing. So he like talks about like home runs and Louisville Slugger, and so I thought it was cool because not many rappers rap about baseball and softball. So
Awesome.
I think definitely that one for sure.
Awesome. Tori, well, we thank you so much for coming on here, and I appreciate all the information you've given us and to all of our listeners, and we wish you the best of luck. We hope to see you in the Olympics coming up here soon. That'd be awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you guys for having me.
Yes, we appreciate you taking the time, giving us your energy tonight, and honestly just sharing your passion for the game, because it stands out, it shines through. It's awesome. Really appreciate you doing this for everybody out there listening, and we'll be following along to the Aggies.
Thank you guys so much.
And
I appreciate you guys for spreading the love to softball.
Definitely.
All right. Well, you have a good one.
Thanks, you guys too.
See ya.
Don't forget when you was broke, I was looking at sunsets, levels to the shit. Damn, look at all the levels that I skipped. Feeling like there's a medal I should get.
Hey, hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Tori. As always, make sure you find us on all things social media at Going Yard Podcast. And on Twitter, our new handle is GY Podcast.
Dang, Twitter. If you can, make sure you follow us, subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, Google Play. Leave us a 5-star review if you could. That way we can climb those podcast rankings. We appreciate the support and reviews that you've left on there for us. Also, check out our website, goingyardpodcast.com. That has all of our content, all of our information on it, where you can follow us on all things social media and all of our old episodes as well.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of the Going Yard Podcast Softball Edition. So for Tori Vidales and all of us here at the Going Yard Podcast, I'm Dan.
And I'm Tyler. See ya.
Later.